Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. So sit back and relax or walk and listen and join me on this journey as we try to answer this never-ending question: what makes people say, why not? Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. Today I am joined by Vicki Hoben. So she is a para-equestrian rider. So Vicky suffers from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and this is a syndrome that affects her collagen production in her body. She's also neurodivergent, so lots to talk about today, spanning a load of different things. And it's really inspiring here because she has not let any of these things slow her down. Not that they should, but she's also a really big advocate and activist for para riders and disability awareness. So I think it's really important to get these out here, and let her tell her story and help other people tell their story too. So I hope you enjoyed the episode today. Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. So today I am joined by Vicki Hoben. So she is a para-equestrian and also a disabilities advocate and activist. So first off, I just want to say welcome to the podcast, Vicki. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Chrissy. I'm all right. I'm alive.
Alive. Always good, always ideal.
Yeah, that's what we want. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, Vicki? Who you are and what you do?
I am a para-equestrian. I'm a disability advocate and activist. I have a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I have a neurodiagnosis now of dystonia.
Okay. So
it is a comorbidity of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Okay. Can you explain what that syndrome does or how it affects you?
Yeah, so there are 13 types of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome being a connective tissue disorder, it affects the formation of collagen in the body. Now, everybody has collagen, but normal people make effective collagen. I do not make effective collagen. My collagen is weak and brittle and does not sustain any kind of trauma. There is collagen in every single cell of the body, so therefore every single cell of a person with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is affected, and it is a multifocal disease. It can cause a wide and varied range of comorbidities, and it is also life-threatening.
Okay, and so how would that affect you in a day-to-day life?
So it causes my tissues to become fragile and weak and break easily. So if somebody bumped off a door handle, we all do it, the door handle.
I walk into everything.
Yeah. Whereas you might just go, ouch, and not think of it, and nothing might happen to you. I will then bruise incredibly easily, and it'll be a severe kind of bruise. Then the skin might break down, and that bruise will break open into what would be a pretty nasty cut. It means being extremely careful as well when I'm riding, and being selective about what I do, because my bones also dislocate with ease. They also break with ease as well. It does cause osteoporosis because the connective tissue forms up your bones as well.
Yeah, that's a lot. And for someone who has to be very careful about what they do, how did you end up in horse riding? Because that's really...
I think at the point though, I just when I was younger, my grandfather was really into horses. He was a horseman himself. And my great-grandfather was a horse-driven coalman in Dublin.
Okay.
Through all those holes in the ground where, they don't use water or anything, there's actually still a lot of coal caverns down underground. Yeah. He was obsessed with horses. And then I became obsessed with horses. And at the age of 12, then I was taken horse riding by the people who was kind of like foster care because of the situation that I was in. My home life was very chaotic and tumultuous. There was a lot of neglect and abuse there, which is really sad. And I hate saying it, but it is the truth. I was really grateful for them taking me horse riding, and I was like a duck to water. But the second lesson, I was being told how wonderful my seat was, and that I was quite natural at it. And at this point, I didn't know that I had a connective tissue disorder. I just thought I was a bit odd. Now I'm still odd. I mean, that's not changed, and it will never change. But yeah, that's how I got into it. And I fell in love with it. And recently I've started doing some hippotherapy, and had been told by my hippotherapist if I hadn't been riding, I'd have probably been in a worse situation with my health now.
Oh, really? What
Yeah.
is hippotherapy, just for anyone who doesn't know?
So hippotherapy is physical therapy on horseback.
Ah, very
So
good.
the natural movements of a horse aid and what's the word I'm looking for? Increase physical well-being of others. Also, I am neurodiverse, so I was really grateful. I'm really, really grateful for horses because I was pretty much nonverbal up till 12. And I never had a friend. And I never knew how to interact with people. But I was really grateful for horses teaching me that.
Yeah.
Like, the horse itself, I'm getting really emotional. The horse itself, like, they have done extraordinary things for me. And there is no way that I feel I can pay that back. But I mean, increasing my horsemanship and increasing my knowledge, like I can maybe make small deposits back to what I was given.
Yeah, it's really clear that like they were a big part of your life and really like helped you through a tough time as well. I think people who
I
aren't
think
involved in horses don't realize that it's much more than just.
to be honest with you, like the whole time I was sitting in hospital and everything, I was talking to the likes of Susan Wells, and I was talking to Emma Golding, and I was talking to Deborah Daniels. Susan said to get things in from the horses and bring it in so that I always had something to talk about or something to focus on and have a goal. Deb reminded me not to take anybody's shit and make sure that I had the things that I needed. Emma messaged me every single day to see where I was at with my legs and whether I could move them or not, or like do whatever I was doing, and explain through, what it's like to have had a spinal injury in some way. And I think people just think that every equestrian has this kind of attitude of elitism, and that there aren't the kinder ones out there. I mean, it's hard to find them sometimes, but there are. And I have to say, the most empathetic and caring people that you would ever meet. Because when you have good and true horsemanship, it shows.
Mm.
It shows not only in your personality, but in how your horses react.
Yeah. Can you describe for me what it was like the first time you got up on a horse?
Oh my God, it was like fireworks going off. I still remember the horse. He lives in Kilronan. He's still alive. His name is Rolo. He's a Shetland.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure he's like in his 50s. Hello, Rolo. Hello, Kilronan. What's the crack? And we went for a little lesson. Then we went outside to what was like the old kind of Hacken trail at the end of it. And I just remember coming out of the woods and then like seeing the sunlight through the trees. And I don't know, I just sighed like this biggest sigh of relief, like, and felt this fireworks of happiness. You know what I mean? And knowing that I belonged here.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that feeling. I think it's really hard to describe. Like, it's like you just know you're in the right place, isn't it?
Yeah, like I have pictures of everything. Like I used to go riding the donkeys and ponies wherever I could, you know what I mean? But that was my first lesson. And every single picture you can see me stimming when I stood next, like, and the biggest, happiest smile on my face. And they're the only times I remember being happy,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. I suppose, like, you know, living with the syndrome you have, it can be very, very difficult. Obviously, with it, you will have a lot of dark times. What is it that has helped you kind of, is it the horses or is it like having a support system? What kind of things helps you get through those kind of times?
I have had to be fairly independent throughout my life, but I don't know. People say I'm extremely resilient. I think I've been forced to be resilient, right? But through that resilience, it has taught me a lot of lessons. Like, I have the psychopathic horse girl thing where if I'm thrown off, I laugh whilst I've been thrown off, look up at the horse and like go, I'm getting back on. Like I rode last year, I rode Vicki Howart's Duster and I fell off. My leg got caught, my knee dislocated. And Vic was like, I'll leave you for 2 minutes because I know you're getting back on. And I was like, yeah. So I hobbled up onto the mountain block with one leg that was actually working. One the other leg that was still dislocated. And I got back on for another 20 minutes.
That's like next level. Like, you know, I consider myself mental, but
But it happens all the time. Like I'll swing my leg over and I'll just throw a hip out. And I'll go, like it'll be immense pain and then like clock it back in. And, you know, people ask me, all right? I'm like, yeah, fine. I'm like, let's get on. Onward, Steed.
I suppose it's normal for you in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah, it is normal for me. Like excruciating pain and awkward situations that are slightly, you know, where I'm in crisis. Normal. I think what's not normal to me is knowing how to rest. That's
Okay.
where I panic. That's where I'm uncomfortable knowing how to rest. Just can't do it. You
Do
know,
you
I've
think
always been looking after people or fending for myself or just getting on with it, you know. So don't know how to rest. And I mean, that would be something that I have a challenge with. I do have this mentality that you have to keep going. And I will keep going until it kills me.
do you think that is in reaction to the syndrome you have? Like you feel like you need to show it, like that it can't stop you more than say people
I
without
just
like able
hate
bodied
the
people.
fact that like it will eventually do it.
Mm.
And I watch others struggle with it. And I'm so stubborn. I'm like fiercely stubborn. And I've always been stubborn. And now I understand why,
Mhm.
right? You know, I haven't shared it with anyone. So whilst I had me little moment and I was on the gas nair and I was scoring sixes and sevens because I was really tachycardic and I couldn't breathe. I had a little moment where I thought I went to the other side
Oh,
and I had a choice whether I wanted to stay or not. And I was like, oh shit. And I don't necessarily want to be in all this pain all the time because it was the worst pain of my life. I've never experienced anything like it. Uh, but I don't want to leave things undone. Like I'm getting somewhere with, you know, representing people and people's human rights and people's ability and accessibility to equity, and finally getting somewhere where people are listening. God, it'd be so easy to stay. It'd be so easy to stay. Like, there was a pint ready for me and everything, you know. I could see everybody overjoyed to see me. And then he asked me, says, "Are you staying?" And I was like, "Ah, shit." Literally my response, "Ah, shit." I want to, but I can't. And I could see everybody's face then looking disappointment, and the music stops. And they're all like, "So, are you going? Or are you staying?" I says, "I want to stay, but I'm going to have to go." And
Yeah.
I remember at this point where they literally were shaking me awake. "Are you there? Are you there?" I could hear shouting. And because I was completely out at that point. It felt like ages there, but I'm sure it was very short here. And I'd come back and I was pretty miserable. I was like, I could have stayed. And then over the next few days, I had so many people remind me of what I'm doing and what I'm doing for other people by sharing my story, by being my most authentic self, by showing my vulnerability. And it's not easy showing how vulnerable I actually am. I make out that I am this strong person. I'm a soft touch. I'm a horrible soft touch. Like, you poke me in the right position and I will start crying.
But to be fair, like, you have to worry about something getting injured as well, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
So let's just take it back here. When you got diagnosed, what was the process? How did that happen? How did you start
It's
seeing signs
extremely
of it?
hard to get diagnosed, right? There is not enough clinicians. There is not enough knowledge. There is not enough awareness. I originally finally got my autism diagnosed, and my ADHD. And I'd then been having all these problems and everything, and I had a mentor because I'm a student mental health nurse and I'm taking a bit of a break at the minute. And my mentor had said, "Did you know that connective tissue disorders are associated with neurodiversity?" I was like, "No." So I go and I research. And I was like, "Oh crap, this is me. I have all these problems. I've had all these problems all my life." Well, this would explain why I could never walk down the stairs and I just fell down it every time. And this would explain why I continuously dislocate this and dislocate that, and like I just cut and bruise easily, you know? I was like, wow, and it has a name. So I fought and I fought and I fought, and I brought all the evidence. I printed it all off, and then I brought all of the stuff. And I'd been diagnosed with like some cardio issues, which is dysautonomia in Canada, such as vasovagal syncope, POTS, and inappropriate tachycardia. And these are all comorbidities of Ehlers-Danlos. And I'm sitting there going, "I have a name for it. It's got a name. It's got a name."
How
So I go to the
important was it getting
rheumatologist.
a name?
I go to the rheumatologist and he doesn't know much about it. So we go back and back and forth for a bit. And one day it pops up on my record, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I breathed a sigh of relief, because from that day on, I knew I was going to be gaslit still, because I'm a woman, and some things labeled anxiety, but a little less so. And the problem is that not enough people know about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Not enough people know how to treat it. They just think people are hypermobile and a little bit bendy and, you know, can do these party tricks. It goes way beyond that.
Yeah. Like, I've
hypermobility,
but I can trust my
if
joints
you
to
want,
stay in the right place.
if you want to look at another equestrian with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I'd be looking at endurance with stripes. She
Mhm.
does endurance. She has EDS. They're investigating vascular EDS. That's where it affects your cardiovascular system,
Okay.
which can be pretty brutal. It is pretty brutal. And I suspect I have it as well.
How common is it as a...
Well, there is studies now to say that people with connective tissue disorders are most likely misdiagnosed with, as having fibromyalgia.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it is highly associated with neurodiversity.
I love
And in some
that.
instances, I've read some studies where the connective tissue disorders is the primary cause for the neurodiversity because of how the brain is made up and the cellular structure.
Okay. And how old were you when you got diagnosed neurodivergent?
So I have been all my life, but it's been a recent diagnosis of autism in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that women who are neurodiverse will wait up until they're the age of 30 or so to be diagnosed. Yeah.
Yeah, I myself, like, I found out I have ADHD about 2 years ago, and I was 31 when I got diagnosed.
And it can be really detrimental, not only to your mental health, but your physical health too. You know, if you are unaware, you can't self-care in the ways that are actually appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's really important, if anybody's listening to this, take on board what we're saying. You know that there's someone, or you suspect that there's someone, support them to go through it. It can be a really scary cause. It can be a really scary process, you know, and you can feel very alone while it's going on. You feel like you are the problem and you don't have a medical condition, and you're gaslit to say that you don't have anything wrong with you. And it's very, very terrifying. Just be the change in that moment and hold that person's hand and say, yeah, do you know what? If you need someone to go to the doctor with you, I'll go. I won't say anything. I'll just sit in the room. Because there's something called dopamine or dopa buddies, where if there's somebody there to support you, you actually have more dopamine to be able to do these things for yourself independently. Well, not so independently because you have a hand holder, but hopefully your hand holder knows how to keep their mouth shut.
I find it interesting because I know some people who are kind of like, now for me, it was kind of TikTok to kind of tip me off originally, but like that, they're kind of like, oh my God, I probably do have ADHD, but like, I won't bother getting diagnosed. And I think that's because there's like a stigma with ADHD that, you know, you're just easily distracted and
Yeah.
it won't make a difference knowing or not. But for me, it explained a hell of a lot growing up that I didn't realize. And then you realize, oh, that wasn't because there's something wrong with me. It's because my brain works differently. And I don't think I made
Yeah.
people to realize how much of a difference it can make just even knowing.
I think for me in the past few years, it's been the unmasking and allowing myself to like be my most neurodivergent self.
Mm.
And knowing that that's okay and that I don't necessarily fit in with society, and that's all right. I found me tribe. I have a whole herd of zebras now, and together we dazzle.
Yeah. And that's it. Like it is finding that and just like seeing as you kind of go, oh, that's why that didn't work and that's why that didn't happen for me. And I'm like, okay, right, okay.
Yeah, you know, and it's okay to be you. It's all right being you. Don't be insecure about being you. Be your weird self. You know what? There's a weirdo out there that's going to love you for being weird.
Yes.
We are out there. Come find us. Let's be weird together. Let's stim over ponies. And I don't know. Have you seen on a Paddy's Day I painted the pony into a leprechaun?
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'll come paint ponies with you, no problem. I'll bring the paint.
Oh, doing all these fun, weird things.
Yeah, man. Like just being your most authentic self, weirdo person. It's cool. It's fine. Some people might not like you. but there are those that will absolutely love you for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is. You're not everyone's cup of tea, but you're someone's shot of whiskey.
Exactly that. You know, make mine a stiff one at that. I said, make mine a stiff one at that.
Fair. So let's go on to the power equestrian side of things, because this is something that you were quite vocal about on your social media. How has the disorder affected how you show up as a horse rider, or how you compete, or where you?
Really very frustrating. Like, because I don't know, Sam was trying to teach me something with the cob. Like, there was buttons that I was trying to learn, because she done a great job of producing it. She's in the background cleaning, if you can hear her. And she was trying to show me, and I couldn't get my leg round because I couldn't feel it. I didn't know where it was going. And then I just looked at her, and I was so furious. I was like, it won't do it. It won't do it. It's not me. It's the freaking leg. My leg won't do it. It's just not doing it. I'm telling it to do it. It ain't doing it. And she's like, calm down. And I was like, can you tell me where my legs are? I don't know where my legs are. And she's like, one's here, one's here. And I was like, great. It'd be great if I could feel them and know where they are. And I get really frustrated about it. My latest is not being able to feel my hands, and that has really scared me. And having to come to terms with now I need the loop trains. Now I'm in this position, and having chats with Joe Elton Whitworth, who's coaching me now, constantly reminds myself to be kind to myself. I've asked John T as well to give me a few lessons, and I rang him up a few weeks ago, and he's like, how are you? And I was like, I'm still alive, you know. And he's like, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, it's not killed me off yet. And he was like, oh, Vicky, stop being such a wet lettuce. He's like, come on now. Like, I appreciate that. One side is like, they're there, it's all good. And then the other side, which I really enjoy, like, you always have to have a bad cop, you know, egging you on, and you can do it. I did message him. I was like, when I was high as a kite, and I'm really grateful for his patience and not messaging me back right away. And I was like, you have shit legs and I have no legs now. I need help with that. I was like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? And me, like, still high on morphine and gas and air, like, is comical. I rang up Lucinda at one point, and I was like, Lucinda, I can't use them. She's like, what do you mean you can't use them? I was like, I'm laying in a hospital bed and I'm staring at the ceiling and I can't move them or feel them. Like, you know, do you think they'll classify me now? And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, they're paralyzed, Lucinda. They're paralyzed. And she turned around, and it was the best response of ever, because I told Joe as well. She's like, great, that's brilliant news. So let me know when you're classified.
How does classification work for power?
So obviously there's grades 1 to 5. 5 being the least, which I don't like this word, least disabled or least affected by your condition and most able-bodied, and 1 being most. Right? I'd like to say I sit in about 3. But Joe did say I'm most likely a 1 now.
Okay.
I would be happy and I would accept a 2, because I am stubborn and I am not giving up. Right? If I can still aim for the 3, bloody brilliant. I do have a diagnosis of dystonia now. I didn't realize that all my muscular problems and not being able to move my body in the ways that I should was dystonia for years.
Okay.
Years upon years of agony. Now, dystonia can actually break bones.
What is dystonia? Do you mind explaining, just for anyone who doesn't know?
Right. So my understanding anyway so far, because I'm still learning about it, It is a connection between your brain and your muscles.
Okay.
Misfiring of that causes cramps, causes weakness, causes what I call the dystonia dance, where you just have complete vibrations and lack of control over your body and your muscles. It can cause such severe cramps and things called a dystonia crisis, which I had. Didn't know that it could actually kill you, so it explains why I was scoring sixes and sevens on a news score for ages.
Mm-hmm.
Mine, though, is closely related to dopamine, which again, closely related to connective tissue and closely related to the neurodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I lack dopamine. My body can't send out the right signals. I end up doing weird things with my body, and I was talking to Clyde Milkins about this recently when he gave me a lesson at the camp last year, because he asked me to squeeze my legs, and I was like, okay, I'm going to squeeze them, and then my legs just kicked into it. Right?
Yeah.
Like, buff. And I was panicking, I was losing my mind, and I was like, I'm not doing that, I promise you, I'm telling them to squeeze, just squeeze, that's all I'm doing. But they kept going and going and going, and it takes so much concentration and energy and exhaustion, and I'm constantly fatigued with it, just to move anything. Like, if I relax my whole body now, the whole thing will start going off and firing off and doing the dystonia dance, and it terrifies me because then I can't stop it.
Yeah.
And then if I relax it long enough, then I can't move anything at all.
Okay.
So it's either constantly be in pain and cramped and teeter on the edge of a crisis, or like having tremors and uncontrollable ataxia that is just horrendous. And then you have the other side, like where I just break easily and then I dislocate. And what my body does to compensate the dislocations and the lack tissues is to tense up, is to cramp. So then it is a vicious cycle. Like, you just don't win, Chrissy.
Yeah. It does sound very tiring, because like if you have to stay tense the whole time, it does make it very difficult to just be able to relax.
I miss the days where, like, it was less progressive and I'd spend like 8 hours in the gym. Loved it. And then go off riding. You know what I mean? I love being active. I love doing things. Like, you can't stop me. And I hate being shoved in a chair now.
Yeah.
I hate having to rely on a mobility aid to get about and do things. I know I was never a truly able-bodied, right? But it was never in a case where it's this bad now. And it's hard coming to terms with your body changing in such a manner. It's hard coming to terms with knowing what you have and then knowing how destructive it can be. I will say it's hard keeping a positive mindset while you do that too. But it is, and I will give advice to other people listening, make sure you have your team and pick your team wisely. There is going to be some horrendous days, but know that you can then trust in those people, because you want to have people that will hold you up, and in return you've returned that favor. You don't forget that favor. It's not about climbing on the backs of each other. It's about raising everybody up.
Yeah. How important to you has it been to find people like that?
It's been hard to find people like that. It's incredibly important to me now. Like, I have seen through this whole last year where I've experienced homelessness, which I still am. Having Sam has been amazing, because she is truly one of these people that is essential to my team. She's essential to me right now. She's allowed me space in her home, her family, in her horses, and helped me up. She's the one that sat there on the sofa and fed me Sour Patch Kids while my spine was dislocated at the time, and told me, no, it's grand, it's grand. Just put this in your mouth. It's going to be lovely. You love Sour Patch Kids. Love them. It'll be fine. I'm like, no, I think I'm dying. I definitely think I'm dying. Time. It was really scary. But to have people like that, when you find them, don't let them go. Do everything that you can to return it as well. Because it is not all about the taking. It is also about the giving. It is also about the paying it forward. And then having coaches that understand you, get you, you know. Oh,
Yeah.
quiet. Understand you, get you, having coaches like that. Yeah, have somebody who is the bad guy. So they always have to be the bad guy. It's fine. And they're cool with it. And I can't wait to have lessons off of John T now soon. Because he's been there where his whole life has been rocked. Right? He fell off, smacked his head, whole life was rocked. And I appreciate that. For someone who has a lived experience, that is essential. And then there's Joe, who has ran RDA, has been involved with para riders, has a mother who is a para rider, has a witnessed lived experience and witnessed lived experiences of many people, and reminds you that in all things to be kind to yourself, to keep your goals set in mind and keep a positive mindset overall, you know?
How important is it to have people who, for want of a better description, also have disabilities around you?
I'm really grateful to have other people around me, because having peers is like having some kind of peer therapy, right? To know that you could call somebody up and say, I'm experiencing this right now. I feel pretty crap about it. Or I need to just talk about it. I need to rant. And I mean, even I do it as well. If I meet another parent, I'm like, if you need someone to talk to, you just call. I don't need an explanation. Here is my phone number. If I see it to you, I'll pick it up. It's very, very important, because a lot of the time with the ableism that is out there, and it is rife, ableism is rife. It's just as bad as racism. And if you didn't know, ableism is a hate crime against a disabled person. Being gaslit, there is so much trauma around it. And people with a disability experience trauma day in, day out, be it their own medical trauma, the trauma of what it's like to have a disability, the trauma of what it's like to experience ableism from other people. You know, it is not easy. You know, you think it's grand, oh, they get an extra few bob for that. You have to fight for that in the first case. You don't instantly get it. They don't just free willy-nilly because they don't believe you. They don't believe that you're disabled. They don't, this whole label, and it's horrendous. And I wanted to disappear of not disabled enough. Okay, so where does the book stop then? Right? People may have a disability and may have comorbid disabilities, a range of multifocal, multidisciplinary disabilities. Stop with your not disabled enough. It's harmful.
As you're like progressive, so your the syndrome you have is progressive. How have you dealt with that?
Just keep going. I literally, like, I'll die happy. I'm going to LA. That's it. I'm going to get this classification. I'm going to get it sorted for everybody else. I'm going to not stop banging me pot down the street until I'm listened to. I would be the most irritating thing to the IPC. And if they're listening, how are you? You're next. Like, in my mindset, that's where I'm going. And after that, and I go to Disneyland, I'll die happy. That's it. I'll stop being in an irritation to you.
Do you think that gives you a focus for when you have the bad days as well?
Yeah. Like, I had so many of those messages reminding me what I'm doing while I was in hospital. Do you know what I mean? That was that made me angry a little bit. And when I get angry, I get feisty. And then I go, right, I'm up for this fight. I've been up for this fight for a while. Yeah, I stopped a minute. I forgot what my cause was. I forgot what my purpose was. But hell to the no, you are not stopping me. You won't tell me what to do. I won't be told. I won't be told, disease. You sit your ass down. I'm not going to sit my ass down. No, you sit your ass down and you take a back seat for a minute.
I love that. I love that determination. And it is like, it's so important, I think, as well, to advocate and like for disabled people. Like you said, like this whole word of not disabled enough, that just,
Why can't I experience my joy? And my joy is horses, right?
yeah.
That's my joy. My joy, like, I recently found, like, I am quite spiritual, and I'll admit to it now. God doesn't have to be found in a building. Sure, fuck it. He created everything around you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you pay to visit over to that side, you really come back to this side with a new sense of wow, right? And an appreciation for things. My joy is in finding all the things around me that's been created. There is energy, there's creator energy in everything. And if anything, the horse is one of the most referenced animals in the Bible. So, you know, I'd rather spend time around his most beloved creatures. I'd rather be out in the trees, hugging them and smelling the air and feeling the breeze and taking a minute for the sunshine. Like, if you ever just took a minute to sit there, close your eyes, face your face over to that sunshine and feel that warmth. That was made just for you. That was made for you to experience. You don't have to go into a building to feel spiritual. Why don't you just take a walk? Or in my case, on the back of a cob.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Right? Like, horses in my legs now. I know that they don't work all that great, but find a way to find your joy, find your happiness, and know where it is. And once you've found it, no one can steal that. And don't allow anyone to steal it either. Not even a disease.
Love that. What advice do you have for anyone who may be trying to go through a diagnosis now or coming to terms with a diagnosis like this of any form of disability?
First off, if you're concerned about it, go to the society associated with it. They're incredibly supportive. Ehlers-Danlos UK and Ehlers-Danlos Society overall, I find them to be fantastic. They have to be the most knowledgeable, kind. In some cases, because they're all neurodiverse, because they've got connective tissue, they're weird. But I love the phrase. Do you know that a herd of zebras is called a dazzle?
I did not.
It's called a dazzle, and together we dazzle.
I love that.
Right? Dazzle, my love. Dazzle. Go find your herd. If you don't feel like you fit in somewhere, go find your herd. It's fine. It's going to be scary at first. You're going to be shitting it quite a bit. And you're not going to feel comfortable. But it's okay leaving your comfort zone. Better things are ahead. When there is knowledge, there is power. You can do things then. Find the society. Ask them. In some cases, they might actually be able to support you through a diagnosis. When you find the society, then you can find other people local to you in your area that might actually be able to go with you. You might be able to make friends, have peers that truly understand you, and then have the evidence to go to the doctor with that will make it a lot easier versus having to go through umpteen thousand tests which might incite a bit of medical trauma. And to safeguard yourself from that, just reach out. There's always a helping hand. There is.
I think it's very important to remind that as well, because it's very easy to think that you are alone in situations like that, or especially if you don't know if it is like, so you don't have a diagnosis yet, but you have an idea. But it can be very hard to reach out and talk to people about it, because
I mean, you said it earlier on as well. Doing your research on TikTok is not a bad thing. I mean, doctors now hate it because they think it's like the new Google diagnosis thing.
It can be a bit wild now, to be fair. Some of the stuff is a bit...
Some of this stuff is a bit out there. Like, don't trust everything. Make sure that it's research backed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's something called evidence-based practice, and you need to do the research behind it. Trust the ones that do provide the studies in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for me, top 3 is the hypermobile mom, Alison Tennyson, Dr. Gumby. All of them evidence-based practice behind all their videos. If it's a different condition, these are my tips. If you're going to watch TikTok, make sure the studies are in there. Make sure you've read the studies. Make sure the studies are peer-reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Before going anywhere near your doctor.
No.
They've had umpteen people come to them about TikTok and Google already. You don't want to be gaslit. I don't want to set you up to be medically gaslit.
Yeah. No, you're right. So what is the future for Vicky? What's in the future? What are the plans?
LA. I'm going. And find me a horse in the next year. For the meantime, I have Daisy Dew is her name, on loan from Sam from Bonbon Equestrian. Please go give her a follow. She is pivotal to my journey right now. And then it is just knocking things out. Currently, I am a ambassador for quite a few things, so keep track with that. You will see some lovely dressage content in the next few weeks. I have tests to film.
Nice.
Yeah. And then it is getting classified now that I have the diagnosis that will get me my classification. And this is my first share of this, by the way. You get a first feel privileged.
Exclusives. I love getting exclusives.
Getting exclusives. And then it's out on the circuit as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. That's
right.
Great.
I will be out there. And please, if you do want to come say hello, I don't bite. I really love to chat. Like, I'll talk to the end earth. And then I might end up having Sam drag me somewhere, like literally drag me somewhere or push me. Most likely push me.
Fair. That's
just
all right,
disappear backwards, you know. And I'm so sorry I've been talking too long.
Roll back.
Yeah. But that's what I'm aiming for at the minute. I'm also doing equine facilitated learning. So we'll be doing some mindset stuff, therapy through horses. I'm hopefully going back and finishing off my mental health nursing degree.
Yeah.
But we'll see where it takes us, and enjoy the journey, enjoy the sunshine. It's okay when it rains, there's always a rainbow.
I love that. Yeah. So with that, I think that is pretty much everything I have to ask you, Vicky. But there is one thing I always ask people at the end of the podcast, and that is going to be, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
As the times they are so bad, a little more you would be glad. But you have to make do with what you have.
I love that. And it shows it as well, like you can see all the things you say you're doing and getting involved in, like, you know, you're not letting the disability slow you down. Sometimes it forces you to sit still for a bit. but it's not stopping you. You can see you're so determined. You've so many different things going on.
Sometimes you sit still to reflect on what's going on, to get a clear path, to see, through the rain and wait for the sun to shine that rainbow. We're Irish, there's always a pot of gold at the end of it. Find your pot of gold. Keep your joy. Don't let anyone destroy your joy. And in my joy, that's where I live the most. And I won't let my disability or anybody steal it. I'm very protective of your joy. Hold on to your joy. It is your baby. It is your happiness at the end of the day. You choose to be happy within that joy. It is your peace. And don't let anyone steal it. Be protective of it. And even if it's a disease, don't let it steal it.
That is fantastic. Really good mindset. Before you go, Vicky, I just want to say thank you for coming on today, but also where can everybody find you and keep up with you?
So I am Vicki Hoben, para-equestrian across all socials. Again, come stop, have a chat. Like all me stuff, please. Sam and I are in a bit of a social media race. If she gets more followers than I have at the end of the year, then I have to take her for dinner. And I'm not in the able to pay for dinner, so she said, come on now, help me out. But yeah, Vicki Hoben, para-equestrian. You will see me splurted on Bonbon Equestrian as well every now and then.
Badly. And as ever, guys, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. So it is at @strongthesaddle with an underscore on Instagram, but without the underscore on TikTok. And my website, if you want to find out more about working with me, is www.chrissyhawkins.com. And then I just want to say thanks again, Vicky, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Chrissy. Bye.
I really do appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. So if you please could help me with the algorithm and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And even, if you want to reach out and suggest topics for me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Drop me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. And thanks again for listening.